Welcome to the Gridiron Round-Up with your host, Randy Silver. We break down the biggest sports stories from football. Today we have your college football week to recap, scores, storylines, rankings, and reactions. Let's dive into it for you. Here's your new AP poll, just came out today, Sunday. Georgia has 55 first place votes, 1,540 points. Previously first, staying first with a 2-0 record. Michigan is second with 2 first place points, 1,458 points total. Rounding out the top three is Florida State after that big win against LSU in week 1, 1,413 points, 2-0 record. You can see Texas jumped into number 4 after the big win this week against Alabama, which we'll touch on in a little bit, with 1,398 points. They sit there in 4th. And then top 5, moving in there, is USC, Southern California, after demolishing Stanford. We'll dive into that game as well. 1,269 points. Rounding out your top 10, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington, Notre Dame, Alabama. Alabama falling down but still in top 10. Then you have Tennessee, Utah, Oregon, LSU after losing to Florida State, still in the top 15. Kansas State, Oregon State, Ole Miss, Colorado moving up a couple spots after beating Nebraska. Oklahoma, North Carolina, and then rounding out 21 through 25, Duke, Miami, Washington State, UCLA, Iowa. So your only teams in here so far with a loss is LSU and Alabama, and they lost to teams ranked higher than them, so it would make sense they probably would beat the teams below them, but who knows, it's still early. So let's talk about some key storylines and go over scores and everything for you that you need to know. A big story that broke today that is more important than the football, more important than the game. Michigan State University, their football head coach, Mel Tucker, suspended without pay amid sexual harassment, and it was done reportedly to a rape survivor. So reading into the article so you're aware, MSU Athletic Director Alan Haller announced suspension in Sunday evening's news conference. He said MSU secondary coach Howland Barnett will serve as interim head coach, and Mark D'Antonio, Michigan State's former head coach, legend there, has been named an associate head coach. In a report published by USA Today early Sunday morning, hours after Michigan State's victory over Richmond in the second game of the season, Tucker's alleged to have made sexually suggestive comments during a phone call with a woman, her name is Brenda Tracy, while masturbating during that conversation. Pretty vulgar stuff, pretty eye-opening thing, especially for someone as a coach talking to a bunch of people, public domain, public face, to do that. Nobody should be doing that whatsoever. Of course, it's allegations. We need to dive into the details more. Tracy was raped by a group of football players in 1998, has become a nationally known and honored advocate combating violence and sexual assault on campuses across the country. According to the report, Tracy has made multiple visits to Michigan State beginning in 2021, twice to meet with the team, and once as a honorary captain before the 2022 spring game. So for the coach to do this to someone he knows has been harmed before in a sexual assault type of allegation is just crazy, something that you would never expect. She put out a quote to USA Today. The idea that someone could know me and say they understand my trauma, but then reinflict the trauma on me is so disgusting. It's hard for me to even wrap my mind around it. It's like he sought me out just to betray me. So this will be developing. He will not be coaching while this goes through, and we'll keep you updated as this happens. So Michigan State football coach Mel Tucker is suspended without pay amid sexual harassment investigation. Let's take you to the scores from the weekend. Georgia, number 1 team. Ball State, never really had a chance, lost 45-3. Number 2 Michigan, 35-7 beats UNLV. Texas wins a great game against Alabama, 34-24. Go on to Tuscaloosa and win that game. We're going to dive in that game in more detail. Florida State hand Southern Miss a loss, 66-13. Ohio State beats Youngstown State 35-7. Their offense looked back to normal, so good to see. You can see Marvin Harrison Jr., Heisman candidate, 7 receptions, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. USC destroyed Stanford 56-10. USC was up 49-3 at halftime. They only got 7 points. They took out all their starters basically in the second half. They only got 7 points in the fourth quarter. 56-10. This could have been a 100-point game if they kept all their starters and kept going. But good for USC. Last time they'll be playing Stanford most likely because Stanford's going to the ACC. USC is going to the Big Ten. Who knows when they'll be able to play again. Penn State beat Delaware. Tennessee crushed Austin Peay. Notre Dame crushed NC State. Utah won a close game against Baylor. You can see here that Utah to come back from losing at halftime, 14-point swing in the fourth quarter to win that game. Oregon beat Texas Tech in a crazy game. You can see here as well, going into the fourth quarter, Oregon had 18 points. Going to the fourth quarter, Texas Tech had 27 points, and Oregon goes on a 20-3 margin run in the fourth quarter to win. A pick six with less than a minute to go sealed the win for Oregon. Good for them to go in and get that W. LSU crashed scrambling. Kansas State win 42-13. Oregon State beat UC Davis 55-7, start 2-0. Again, they have a lot of uncertainty happening with them in Washington State because of the Pac-12 dissolving. North Carolina beat Appalachian State 40-34. Oklahoma beat SMU 28-11. SMU needs to get used to these types of games if they're moving to the ACC. Oklahoma, of course, is going to SEC next year. Washington State beat Wisconsin. Biggest shocker of the day. Biggest shocker potentially of the season so far. Washington State is 2-0. You can see here Washington State win the halftime up 24-9. Wisconsin came out really strong. Took that 9 to make it 24-24. And it's 24-22, excuse me. And then Washington State got a touchdown in the fourth quarter, held Wisconsin to 0 points, and got the win 31-22. Ole Miss beats Tulane 37-20. Lane Kiffin, known to put it all on the line, had multiple fourth down conversions he got, helped them win that game. Ole Miss is now 2-0. Duke continues to win. They beat Lafayette 42-7. Colorado, we're going to key this game, beat Nebraska 36-14, making this old-time rivalry game. And a lot of talk going into this game, Matt Rule versus Deion Sanders. Colorado never really looked threatened. They dominated most of this game. Miami go and win against Texas A&M. Hot seat for Fisher is going to be lighting up. Miami 2-0, most likely be ranked next week. And Clemson crushed 66-17. So let's key into some of these games really quick. Edwards, for Texas. He's keeping Arch Manning from playing. He's deserved it. Look at that. 349 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Played a great game. Multiple deep throw for touchdowns. Texas win probability basically was pretty high throughout the whole game. Throughout most of the game, you can see here they were winning. At halftime up 13-6. Alabama came out strong in the third quarter to make it 16-13. And Texas took over in the fourth quarter in Tuscaloosa and win. Steve Sarkisian gets his key win against a former coach that he used to coach with. He used to be the coach at Alabama as the offensive coordinator. Texas gets that big program win that they needed. They're now 2-0. As we talked about, they're now in the top 5 of the poll. This is massive for them moving forward. Alabama's young. They lost a lot of players this year. It's a rebuilding year. They always do rebuild and do well, but not a complete shocker, but something that Alabama needs to bounce back from. As we talked about, USC crushed Stanford 56-10. In this game, Caleb Williams just absolutely dominated. It wasn't even a close match. 19 for 21, so he only missed 2 throws for 281 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 half. Could have been much worse, honestly, if he kept going. It's looking like it could be another Heisman Trophy campaign for him. Buffaloes beat Nebraska 36-14. Sanders 31 for 42, 393 yards, 2 touchdowns. He now has over 800 yards passing in 2 games, 0 interceptions, 5-6 touchdowns. Obviously, they have all the hype, and they've been backing it up. This is a really big win for them. When we look at the box score, the other person that people care about from the receiving yards is Travis Hunter. He's playing both ways. When we look at Travis Hunter, 3 receptions, 73 yards, so no 100-reception game. Played great defense again, played all the way around. Colorado was able to get the turnover margin going for them. They capitalized on those turnovers. Nebraska played some good defense. Their offense just let them down, and Colorado got that W. They're now 2-0, and they should go 3-0 next game when you look at their schedule. Who does Colorado have coming up next? Colorado State, in-state rival. And then they have Oregon and USC. USC in Colorado at Oregon. So this will be a great test for them. We'll see how they are. If they come out of that 5-0, talk about title contenders for sure. Texas A&M lost to Miami 33-48. A&M went into halftime down 17-21. Close game in the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, Miami was able to pull away and win. Texas A&M's defense could not hold Miami back. You look at Miami's QB. He went 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 374 yards. Good luck. You're not going to win when you give up that much. Miami's 2-0. Are the Hurricanes back? We'll find out as we move forward. Here are your college football standings, so you can take a look at your respective D1 divisions. Most conferences haven't played conference games yet, so we'll start to see how it pulls away after. Some teams have, as you can see in the ACC. Duke does so far. We got Big 12 right here. BYU is now moved in. Of course, other teams are moving in from the Pac-12 next season. Big 10, a bunch of teams are moving in from the Pac-12 next season. So we're here, they're at right now. Conference USA. Independence. Mid-American. Mountain West, which potentially could become Pac-12. We'll see how that all shakes out. And then the Pac-12, get used to seeing this for one more season. This could go away. And finally, your SEC. And then let's not forget the Sun Belt. Let's continue to dive into those top 25 here really quickly so you can see more. Florida State, Boston College is always a fun game. Georgia, South Carolina is always a fun SEC game. South Carolina is 1-1. They used to be nationally ranked. There's much more, but you should expect Georgia to win this. Oregon State, San Diego State is a fun West Coast game. They may be in the same conference next year, so we could see this happening more and more. If Duke, Northwestern, Iowa, Western Michigan, Ohio State, Western Kentucky, Washington, Michigan State, Washington State, Northern Colorado, UCLA, North Carolina Central, Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, Texas, Wyoming, Michigan, Bowling Green, we talked about, Oregon, Hawaii, and Colorado State, Colorado. That is your quick college football week 2 recap and also some previewing of week 3. Come back here for next week. We'll dive more into week 3 storylines that are developed through the week. And of course, subscribe here. We have football roundup for America football. We have European football roundup. We have the Gridiron Round-Up here for college football. We have MMA roundup, and we have hoop roundup. So we got so much for you here on the channel. Please subscribe, please like, please comment. Let's have a debate. Who do you got going to the football playoffs? It's still early, but who are your pretenders and who are your winners? Thank you for watching. Randy out.